Hi, I'm Kimberly Lane.
I'm Tom Henschel.
I'm Sonia. Together, we're unlocking leadership. We are three experienced executive coaches with very different disciplines. In every episode, we take a question from a real client and provide key insights to address their challenges from our three different perspectives. It's a holistic approach to understand challenges and opportunities. Let's get to it. Our question today is from Samantha in Las Vegas. I know of several leaders who accepted their dream job in another organization who end up parting with a company after a year, mostly due to termination. I'm concerned that this could happen to me. What do I need to do differently? Tom?
Samantha, I think there's two different parts to this question. One part is the question about people leaving for their dream job and getting fired. Like, what's that about? That's a whole question.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the question, which is, what should I do differently?
Mm-hmm.
Let me start with, I don't know, but because I don't know what your goals are yet, but I do have a suspicion about something, and I hope I'm right, which is, it seems like you're thinking about change. You're watching these other people who have jumped and gone to another job, and you're thinking about change too. I want to be sure that you get as empowered as you can to manage all the things you can manage, because in the middle of change, there's a whole lot you cannot manage, but there's a whole lot that you can. So I really want to suggest that you don't think of it like a storm that's swirling around you, but that you really step away from it. You think of it like a vessel, like a vase, a cup. That's your change. Step away from it and start talking to people about it. Look, this is Kimberly's thing, right? About connection, right? And what we learn from connecting to other people. Talk to people about what you think that change looks like, because you will deepen your thinking and it will begin to reveal to you, like, what would be helpful? What would you know to do differently then? I think you would know a lot more. So let me just stop there for a minute. Let me hand this off.
Okay.
All right, I'll take a stab at that. Sam, I was thinking about your question, and first of all, it's got to be very anxiety provoking when you hear that your friends and peers thought they had achieved their dream job or career only to find out or to be left unemployed in, say, 12 months to a year, whether it's out of personal choice or just out of a termination. So kind of like Tom split it into two different parts, and I'm doing the same, but different parts. So each one of those situations that you alluded to are probably have a unique scenario, which I'm not aware of. However, all of them have joined a new organization with the anticipation of finding their dream job or being in their dream job. And finding and being in your dream job isn't the entire story. There's the rest of the story. Same way when you find or are looking for your dream home, you have your dream home, but there's a context in which it exists. So for an example, your dream job exists with the context of an organization. So I would encourage you to go back and listen to our episode number 4 from season 1, which talks about a company's being acquired and somebody is concerned whether they should stay or go because they're concerned about the new culture. So that'll give you some ideas about how to analyze that company. So my two parts are, one, let's look at the new organization first. Is that a new organization that you want to be a part of, which is inclusive of your dream job? And then secondly, let's look at when you are in that dream job career, when the right organization at the time, how can you ensure that you're part of their future? So I'm going to address the first part first, and then I'll hand it off to Sonia. So when you're looking at your new organization, for your new dream job, you've got to look at what I think are 4 things: culture, values, purpose, and strategy. So the culture, is it aligned with you? Is it highly competitive? Does it foster community? Is it cohesive? Whatever is important to you. The biggest thing is, can you thrive in that culture? And you can possibly find that out before you take that dream job, maybe interview people that you would be leading, some other employees in the company, do some research online. Again, that's also highlighted in our episode 4. The second piece would be values. Do they match your level of integrity, professionalism? Is it inclusivity, diversity, whether women are on boards or not. How do they manage customer relationships or quality of their product, things that are important to you. Third would be the higher purpose part. Especially today, more companies in supporting younger generations have some bigger purpose or initiative, going green, the Humane Society, Cancer Society, something. And is that aligned with you? And then the fourth piece would be, what's their long-term strategy and or vision? You need to know this and have clarity on that, at least from what they can tell you at the time. Are they going to sell the company? Are they going to go public? Are they going to expand their footprint internationally? Are they going to grow through acquisition? It's very important to be very clear on those 4 points. And the final piece would be, if their acquisition or merger does happen, unfortunately, usually that acquiring company or the more dominant company in the merger comes in with their own executive team. And usually if you're on the executive team of the company being acquired, you're probably let go. And that could be a good thing, because maybe that culture isn't going to be something you want to be a part of anyway. So keep those in mind. I'm going to pass it off to whoever wants to take.
So I'm going to come at it from a completely different perspective. I firmly believe that as within, so without. So you really have to start with self-awareness. And if you really come to a place where you understand your own strengths, your own capabilities, and then as you're creating your career, moving forward in it, you identify a dream job. My first question would be, why is that dream job not something available at the company that you're at? Because something to think about is, when I hear the word dream, the perspective that I have is that you think it's unachievable, and therefore it's like something that's like a magic wand. Magic wand showed up, and now I'm able to the fairy touched me, and suddenly I'm able to do this. And the thing that I think happens is that we may have unrealistic expectations about what we are looking for in a dream job. And I think that we don't take into consideration all the other factors that show up. And that is, wherever you're going to work, unless even if you become president of a company, you have the board to respond to. So you will work in the context of a group. You will work in a context with whoever your boss is, and whoever your peers are, and whoever your direct reports are, if you have direct reports. And so it's, if you will, its own ecosystem. And you have to be able to identify how you're going to be successful in a new ecosystem, but you need to understand why it's a dream job. And sometimes, and I hope it's not you, Sam, but maybe it is, people are in love with a particular role or title, and they assume that certain things happen. I'll just share something that happened when I was in technology. And obviously, you're in the process of developing people so that they can move up in the ranks. And there was somebody that had worked very effectively, and I thought that he deserved to be a vice president. And I championed for him, and he became a vice president. And about 2 weeks later, he came in and he closed the door and he says, "Can I just ask you something?" And I said, "Sure." He said, "I thought I would feel different being a vice president, but I don't feel different at all." And I said, "Well, what did you think it was going to feel like?" And so it was back to that dream, the wand, the magic potion, the whatever you want to call it. We don't always connect to what actually is possible. And so I basically said to him, look, in most roles, when you are going to go to the next level, you're already doing anywhere between 50 to 70% of that. And that's the potential that the organization recognizes. Now, sometimes, and this is my last part before I turn it over to anybody else, sometimes people identify that dream job as something completely different than what they're doing and what they have developed and worked on. And so you're setting yourself up for a very challenging situation, because in moving to a new organization, you've got to demonstrate value very early on. Most companies don't hire you into a new role without assuming that you can at least perform certain things in that role. They're not there to mentor you and develop you. until you've proven to them that you can bring certain things to the equation. That gets sorted out a lot today because there's a lot of, I just see that there's more interviews, there's more in-depth interviews. So there's a greater chance that the organizations have of thinking of the fit. But sometimes we get stuck on mentioning something and we think it means this to me, but it means that to them. And so I will, go here and say one of the things that we did in one of the other episodes had to do with being able to be approaching things as if you were going into a new country. And so there is you, who you are, what your capabilities are, what you can bring to the table. Then there is the role as it's defined. And the question you have to ask yourself is, and if it is your dream role, what is it about it that makes it dream? And how much of that can you actually perform? And then within the context of that culture, or that, as Kimberly just identified, all these different things, is that an ecosystem in which you will flourish? If you do most of that kind of analysis and get in touch with that, and you may have to have some thought partners in the process, the likelihood that you will actually get laid off really goes down significantly. So I'll stop now.
And I'll kind of pick up from that and kind of now go into that second part where that self-awareness, and let's assume you take that dream job or dream career and you've also looked at the context in which it exists, or the neighborhood where that house exists, if you will. It's important in a short amount of time, you're going to have many eyes, especially in a presidential position or a high executive position, a lot of eyes on you, on your performance, and you've got to be performing in that 12-month period. So you've got to ingrain yourself to that organization pretty quick and start showing results. So I kind of like to think about being connected, being intentional, and being visible. And so really try to penetrate that organization through building relationships and networking, not only those above you, but those that are peers to you, and find out what their initiatives are and long-term goals and help them achieve that, so that you become you start becoming indispensable and you're really connected to the network that's the pulse for that organization. I think being intentional about what you want to accomplish, speaking up about that and things that are aligned with the company's values, and being vocal about your career too, whether you want to stay in that current position in your quote dream job, or if there's another one within that organization. And then finally, I think being visible is really, really an integral part for you being part of that future of that organization. It's kind of like the squeaky wheel gets the attention, right? And when you're visible, whether you're leading a committee or more importantly, leading a task force that is future oriented towards a goal of that company, I think being visible will help also that secure your position from a retention perspective as the company's moving forward in the next year or two. So, Tom, anything else you want to add?
This oh my goodness, there's so many threads to pick up. This is fantastic listening to you both. So I'll pick up on something, Sonia, you talked about self-awareness, that, working on you.
Mm-hmm.
Samantha, I'm going to go back to something I said in the very beginning. I think it's important that you be empowered if you want to make a change. And I think we're all assuming, that's interesting, we all assumed from the question that you do want to make some sort of change. Mm-hmm. If that's true, I want to tell you that the place people want the most help when they reach out for help often is, quote unquote, talking about yourself. Mm-hmm. People have trouble talking about themselves. Mm-hmm. And I want to tell you, it's a learnable skill. It's something you can work on. There's lots of resources out there for you. There's just tons of things you can do, but you need to be, if you want to create change in your life, you need to be able to talk about yourself so you can tell people what you're seeing and how it looks to you and what your hopes are and what your fears are. And what that means, you need to be able to talk about yourself. So I hope that that's a skill that you work on.
Yeah. I think there's two things that came to mind as Kimberly was talking and Tom was talking. One of the things that I think is interesting about getting perspective for ourselves in our career is being able to be a good listener, particularly when you're going into an organization. There was a leader that I worked with who came in at a pretty senior level, into a very difficult and very challenging group of peers. And he was a male and all the peers were female. And so he decided, now this is all before COVID, but I think one could still do it anyway. He decided that he was going to get to know every single one of those people one-on-one. And he basically talked to their assistants and found out what was the time that they had, like, if you will, a 15-minute, 20-minute open in their calendar. And then he would like show up for their coffee or whatever. And he'd basically say, his only question was, how can I help? And every single one of them gave him a version of how he could help, because he knew the role he'd come into had been challenging and had not worked out like they wanted to. And so as a result of that, he built allies because he listened. He came to understand them really well. So that's something to think about. I agree with Tom that being able to learn to speak up about yourself is also something that's a challenge. One of the things that I often do with a leader when they are contemplating making like some interesting shifts, I'll say, let's put together like a resume of what is it that you think you have done that's really successful in your career. Not like you're going to be, not like I'm an employer, but let's really analyze it. And so when they do that, I sit there and go, okay, so that goes to emotional intelligence skills. That goes to strategic skills. That goes to operational skills. And I try to position for them the level of integration, or what are their, where are they primarily focused, so that they can see themselves in a new light. That then allows them to, if you will, process their experience. Even, because one of the things about life that's true is I don't see many people at the very top who didn't fail. Everybody that I know that got to the top failed, but it was about how they took that failure and what they did with it that made lemonade. They made lemonade.
Yep. It's about being connected and being intentional about where you want to go and be vocal about it, and being very visible. I really agree with the listening piece of that, and really building those relationships that where you're really supporting others. And that really makes you an integral part of the team moving forward and be part of the future of that organization. So thank you, Samantha, for your question today. We hope you, our viewers, and our listeners gain new insights on how to be successful in a new organization and to ensure that you are part of that organization's future. If you like the content we shared today, please like this episode and share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Unlocking Leadership-askthecoaches.com. For you podcasters out there, thanks for downloading and posting a review of our podcast, Unlocking Leadership-Ask the Coaches, on Apple or your favorite podcast platform. If you have a leadership question or would like to reach out to one of our coaches today, please email us at info@unlockingleadership-askthecoaches.com. Again, that's info, INFO, at unlockingleadership-askthecoaches.com. Thanks for joining us today. Tune in next time to find the keys to unlocking your best leadership.